missed him. Joining me now is retired four-star General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst. General, great to see you. Thank you for being here. First, just a general question about the morale, for lack of a better word, in the military. How has the military been affected by that withdrawal?
Well, I think for those who serve, certainly, it's kind of like a gut punch, and it's something that's going to stick with them for years to come. I mean, I went through this as an airborne infantry platoon leader and company commander in Vietnam because of how that war ended. And I've never let go of it. It still bothers me to this day, given the sacrifice we were making and my teammates, et cetera, and certainly the suffering of the people as a result of it. I think there is a distinct difference here, though, and it's an important one. Our troops, for the 20 years in Afghanistan, we sent them there to make certain that the United States was not going to be attacked by al-Qaeda again. And our troops there for those 20 years, regardless of all the policy decisions that were misguided, what our troops did is going to be protected even for those 20 years. And we got to feel good about that.
Yes.
And our troops should feel good about it. I understand how they feel. I mean, the humiliation and the frustration and the embarrassment of how this happened leaves them with a lousy taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
And I understand it. And I'm not trying to remove that. But I am trying to tell them that, listen, they did what was asked of them, and we kept America safe.
You know, my Marine son was there for a year, I asked him, he felt terrible about the way the withdrawal had stick in his craw, but at the same time he said, you know, when we were there, we were helping the innocent and we were punishing the guilty. We were trying to kill as many evil people as possible and trying to help as many Afghan citizens as possible. I feel good about doing that. So I think that's your point. There's still a lot to feel good about what we did. But there was a message not only to our military, but also to our enemies. What do you think the message is to our enemies? And is there long-standing, are we going to suffer problems from that for a long time to come?
Oh, I think we will. And I don't say that lightly. I certainly don't want that to happen, but I think the evidence is pretty clear. The United States is diminished as a result of that. Our judgment, our competence were brought into question, and also our values, because we walked away from hundreds of American citizens and Afghan partners who we left behind, and we just walked away from our ally who we fought side by side with for 20 years. We surrendered the country to our adversaries, and now they're protecting the al-Qaeda, the very reason we went there in the first place. So, yeah, I mean, this lingers on. Our enemies are emboldened by it. Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, the Iranians, aggressive in the Middle East. That's not accidental.
Yeah.
That's as a result of what they see as American weakness and the opportunity to take advantage of it.
And so much of it was preventable. I mean, we just had over the weekend former CENTCOM Commander General Frank McKenzie speaking with our Jennifer Griffin. I just want to play a little bit of what he said about the way it all took place a year ago. Roll tape.
I advised against withdrawing. My recommendation and my opinion, and it remains so today, was we had the opportunity to remain in the country with a small force. We believe that Kabul would fall if we pull out our troops. It was just a question of when Kabul would fall, and we have been saying that really since the fall of the year before.
So Biden was getting advice, and he wasn't taking it.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we didn't have a perfect situation in Afghanistan, and I certainly understand why some people wanted to leave. But we had an acceptable situation. It was a stalemate. The Taliban could not defeat the Afghan government and security forces, nor could the Afghan government and security forces defeat the Taliban. And as a result of that, we were able to make certain that the al-Qaeda and ISIS would not rise to be a threat against the United States of America. So we were accomplishing our mission in a stalemated situation. And that's what McKenzie's talking about here. He wanted to maintain that. Even our allies, the NATO forces who were there, they had 6,000 troops there. We had 2,500. They wanted to stay because they saw it in their national interest to protect their own people by staying in Afghanistan because of that threat. Certainly the military, the intelligence advisors, and foreign policy advisors all told the president, don't do this, because the Taliban can take over, and then we're dealing with the very situation we had from the beginning. Now, the Taliban, I mean, the Al-Qaeda is not the Al-Qaeda of 9/11, that's for sure, because we were there making certain that didn't happen. But the potential for them to grow and thrive under the protection of the Taliban, that's real, and that is the concern that everybody has.
And even though we got Zawahiri, which was a great thing, it does seem like the terror networks are increasing there right now. Very quickly, General, we don't have much time left, but Mikhail Gorbachev died today. Your thoughts about his role in society and his role in the end of the Cold War?
Well, I think he was a visionary who came to grips and very pragmatically with the fact that the communist system was failing, it was crumbling. The economic system that was supporting it could no longer thrive, and he saw no future in it whatsoever. So he tried to open up his society with glasnost and perestroika and cut a deal with Reagan to do something better for his people. And the Soviet Union did collapse. I don't think that was his intent, but it did collapse, as a result of it.
Although I tend to think that
10
he
years
got
later, we got Putin.
Yeah, I tend to think he get more credit than he deserves, because you had that triumvirate of Pope John Paul II, Ronald Reagan, and Maggie Thatcher. That triumvirate was, I think, the real pivotal force in ending the Cold War, don't you?
Oh, yeah. And also George H.W. Bush, in terms of how he was handling
that's true.
The collapse of the Soviet Union as well, and to make certain that we weren't rubbing their noses in all of this and making the situation worse, in our victory. We had very significant leaders on the world stage at that time, and the American leadership was out front, certainly in doing all of this, and deserved a huge amount of credit.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you realize how far we've come, not necessarily in the right direction since then. General Keane, good to see you. Thank you very much for being here, sir. Appreciate it.